Hey, everybody, welcome back to Bayou Time. Harry McCullough here. We're going to spend the next three segments talking a little bit about Lafourche Parish, and nobody better to talk about that than Lafourche Parish President, Mr. Archie Chaisson, the third. I didn't realize you were third, man.
That's right.
Yeah, well, you got a legacy going there. You got a fourth?
No. I got two girls. So
Two girls.
we
You could call one of them, Archie.
we could have, yeah. I don't think
That's
they'd
a cute
appreciate it
name.
very much, right?
No,
yeah.
that's a cute name for a girl. Now, big election for you coming up, right?
Yeah. No election coming up, right?
That's
That
the
was,
best kind, right?
it finally hit me over the weekend, Harry. You think the parish went from a police jury system to a charter government with parish presidents in 1980. Miss Randolph was the first parish president from 80 to 2008 that ever got reelected. So I'm only the second parish president in 40 years to ever get reelected, and the first one that ever went without opposition. So,
It's an honor.
It is. I mean, it's very humbling to think about that sort of thing, right? To do this sort of thing to begin with, and then go through what we went through with COVID and the hurricanes and everything else over the last 4 years,
Right.
and for nobody to even
No, that's how
bat
you
an eye
started.
and going, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it started a week after you got elected, pretty
Yeah.
much.
we were 75 days in when COVID hit, and then it all kind of went downhill from there. But it's a testament. I said this last week to a group. It's a testament to the group of people I get to work with. Right. I may have my hands on the steering wheel for the most part. Every now and then, the little alarm will blink at me and say, "Hey, put your hands back on the wheel."
Mm-hmm.
You're not paying attention. But the 300 plus individuals that we have in Lafourche Parish government are bar none. Right. I'd put them up against anybody else, from our 7 department heads all the way down to our employees in the field and our permit technicians and our emergency preparedness office and all the different the ladies who do our business licenses and all that fun stuff. Our buildings and maintenance crew and everybody. It's a testament to them, right? Those are the ladies and gentlemen who wake up every day and go to work in the heat and the hot and deal with this stuff. And it really is a true testament to them and their hard work over the last 4 years. And then the directions that we've gone, right? We've made some huge strides, making it through COVID, making it through the hurricanes, doing things like the tax reform package that we passed earlier this year with the school board. And we've done some pretty good things. And I think the next 4 years are going to be even better as we start to get a lot of these hurricane recovery projects up. We're meeting this week and next week with all the councilmen because it's budget time for us, talking about their priorities. And some of it is linked to hurricanes. Some of it is stuff that they want to see accomplished and what could be their next term or whatever the case may be, and really focusing on some quality of life stuff, playgrounds, a new ag arena and rodeo arena for some people in Raceland. We're looking at doing some big recreation stuff in Raceland and Lockport and South Lafourche. And then you couple that with some of the economic development stuff we're doing, right? The expansion at John Deere that we were a part of, the expansion at Carbo Foods and Bayou that we were a part of, and all the construction work you see happening there. Big projects like the bridge at the airport with Chet, the partnerships that we've been able to put into place, things we've done with Nichols and, the partnering there to help make sure the Mannings keep coming for their football camps, right? The work in the stadiums and that sort of stuff that a lot of people would go, well, why is the parish giving money to Nichols? Well, when the Mannings show up every year, it's a $2 million economic impact to us, right? So that few $100,000 we loan to JT to go reseal the stadium and make it look pretty and change up the bathrooms and do some stuff. That's a huge deal for the Mannings when they show up and they have this beautiful stadium that those kids and those parents get to see. So you couple all that together, and I think we've made some pretty good strides. And I'm really humbled to be able to do it again for another 4 years. I'm not sure what happened to my bald spot or what it's going to look like at the end. I'll probably end up looking a little bit more like you, Harry. But
mine's a choice, man.
I love this job. I got bit by the government bug 10 years ago when I went to work for Miss Randolph. And I'd do this forever if there wasn't term limits. But we'll see. We got a couple new council, or at least one new councilman.
You weren't the only one.
I wasn't the only one.
People, we've always talked Lafourche is, it's a contact sport when
Right.
in politics. Because of the graphics of people from the demographics of people from the South and the North and then everywhere in between. It always seems like it's a contact sport. But you guys have seemed to. It seems like peace and harmony a little bit. I'm sure you still got some wars and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, no doubt. But to have another couple of guys that also unopposed says a lot.
Yeah, Councilman Adams, which represents most of the 6th Ward, the Chag Bay area, parts of the St. John community, parts of the Zalmans, went in unopposed, so he's coming back. And then a huge congratulations and welcome to Mr. Mark Perk, who's going to take over the District 3 seat, which is mostly the city of Thibodaux, part of the Abbey neighborhood and some outlying spots. But Mr. Perk served as kind of an interim city councilman for the city of Thibodaux for a while, and then decided he wanted to do this when Mr. Gross said that he wasn't going to seek re-election for the current seat. So he's going to be a great addition. Thibodaux's coming back. Everybody else has at least 1 or 2 people running against him, so those contact sports are still going to exist.
Yeah. Right.
But look, Representative Fontenot came back without opposition. Representative Zerain came back without opposition. and Representative Ogeron came back without opposition. So, having that state delegation back on board too, as we look toward, Z going into what will be his final term, and some leadership roles there, whether it's appropriations or something bigger, and then Joe and Brian coming back into some senior roles, hopefully, going to create another powerful dynamic in that delegation to help us continue to bring that state money down. I was in a meeting this morning with the 3 levee districts, the freshwater district, and 2 parishes. President Dove and I were there talking about a long-term strategy. Right, we're doing great things in the levee districts with Reggie and Tony and Corey and Dwayne. What Wendell has done, and now Nick has taken over in South Lafourche with Mr. Keith Guidry, who's their new president of that levee board. The great things we've done with Morganza, the Gulf, the great things South Lafourche has done with that ring system. Now that we're having those discussions, right? We're not in that fight or flight mode where we're not raising money to build it. We have the money to build it. Looking at what do we do outside those systems, right? Freshwater adaptive management as the new pump station comes online in Donaldsonville in the next few years. More fresh water means that's more fresh water we can take into the southern end of the system. More marsh creation projects, more coastal restoration. So all that combined is, it's a whole lot of work for us to do, but it wakes us up every day and makes us want to keep fighting.
Yeah, you've done a good job of promoting the parish too. I've heard you on WWL radio and different TV stations or radio stations, which is great. But you've kind of led me into you talking about levies, and you're talking about FEMA, and you're talking about insurance and those kind of things. So everything's not great right now. We talked about it before. We need to get an update on the Jeff Landry lawsuits, which Lafourche and Terrebonne have joined in. So we're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit about that, okay? More with the parish president of Lafourche Parish, Mr. Archie Chaisson, right here on Bayou Time.
Today's social media segment is brought to you by Alford and Associates for all of your insurance needs. CIS, Cardiovascular Institute of the South, the highest quality cardiovascular care available. Barker Honda, the Barker family tradition of quality.
Everybody, welcome back to Bayou Time. Spending some time with Archie Chaisson, the parish president of Lafourche Parish. We went into the break talking about flood zone, flood maps, insurance, all of that. Homeowners insurance is different than flood insurance. FEMA and risk rating 2.0 going into effect. We've challenged, I know Terrebonne and Lafourche have challenged things. So Lafourche is going, my flood maps from the year you were born,
Yeah.
1985.
Yeah.
I think Terrebonne's flood maps were from 1995, but FEMA is now saying if you want flood insurance, you got to get into the system. I think Lafourche has a little longer grace period to challenge those things, but so that Jeff Landry was going to file a lawsuit on behalf of, and Terrebonne and Lafourche joined that lawsuit with him. It looked like at the beginning, the judge was going to say, 2 weeks, we want to hear from FEMA and why you won't even show us what's in your algorithm, right?
Yep.
And then lately, she passed that 2 weeks, and now FEMA has filed a motion to dismiss with 95 pages of documentation. Yeah. Can you fill us in a little bit of what's happening there?
Yeah, so June 1st, there were 40 parishes, 10 states, I think 12 levee districts in the Association of Levee Boards for Louisiana joined the AG's office and filed a lawsuit in federal court that basically said, you gave us no other option, right? We've tried to play nice in the sandbox and ask you what's in this algorithm, what's in the box, why are flood insurance premiums going from $500 to $5,000, and so on and so forth, and you refused to answer them, right? President Jewell over in St. Charles actually made a public information request to try to get the document because you use taxpayer money to build this algorithm. It should be a public record, and they denied it. They said that it was proprietary information on the company who built it. You can't see it. So Matt files his own lawsuit over the FOIA request, and then we followed a week or so later, I guess, with the AG lawsuit. We were set to have an injunction hearing to basically halt the program where it is now. And let one of two things either happen, right? Either we go through the reauthorization program with Congress. Senator Cassidy has introduced a bill that would reform the National Flood Insurance Program, fix some of the issues with risk rating 2.0, and it would be a long-term reauthorization of the National Flood Insurance Program instead of these every 6 months, every 10 months, whatever we're at now. Or you let the lawsuit happen, and we prove to you how flawed this system is, and we get the whole system overturned, right? One of those two things were going to happen. In the meantime, while we were waiting on that injunction hearing, FEMA filed a motion to dismiss the whole lawsuit. It's 95, 100 pages of a brief to the judge. And the gist of it is that the state itself doesn't, and the government entities don't have a standing to file the case, right? What they're saying is that we don't have any damages. It would have to be, you and me personally would have to go up against FEMA in some type of class action with all of our friends to say, hey, my insurance went from 500 to 5,000. We know your technical data is wrong. Here's why. These are our damages, right? The problem with that is you and I and the average Joe don't have the wherewithal to be able to do that, right? We can't tear apart FEMA.
A lawyer might be happy with that, but not
right?
the rest of us. Yeah.
Right. Or we, hopefully at the end of the day we get those lawyer fees paid for, but somebody to be out of pocket,
right.
or that lawyer's taking a huge risk. So, we're going to see what happens. The AG's office doesn't have a good time frame as to what that's going to look like, how long the judge is going to take to review that motion to dismiss and rule on it. Our hope is that she just throws it out the window and says it's garbage. We're going to proceed with the injunction hearing and we'll deal with the rest later. But in the meantime, we're still fighting those FEMA flood insurance rate maps, right? Terrebonne has a deadline to adopt theirs. I think it's sometime in September. We got lucky. We talked about this during the break. This goes all the way back to 2008, right? They gave us a set of maps we knew were garbage. Several parishes filed a lawsuit against FEMA back then and said, look, these things are wrong. You haven't taken into account any of our levee systems, right? The storm surge models throw water all the way to Thibodeau because you don't take into account railroad tracks, levees, berms, sand dunes, anything, right? So that wound us up into a program called LAMP. It was the Levee Assessment Mapping Procedure. That started somewhere in the 2014, 2015 timeframe. And then literally the Hurricane Ida hits us August 29th. Sometime mid-October, we get a letter from FEMA saying, look, here's your new maps. You got 90 days to appeal it. Merry Christmas. And at that time, I was already hyped up on FEMA, right? We were trying to get housing for our residents. We were trying to get money from them to start doing stuff. And I picked up the phone. I had a very 4-letter induced conversation with FEMA out in Region 6 in Denton, and I said, guys, there's no way to do this, right? There's no way for me to file a technical appeal while we're rebuilding a month and a half after the most devastating hurricane ever hit Lafourche Parish. So they paused it for us. And we've made at least one trip to Dallas or Denton. There've been 1,000 conference calls and emails back and forth. And what we're figuring out is they still don't have the right information, right? We have 84 pump stations in Lafourche Parish. They only had 30 something in their model. Right, they're pulling levee data from the National Levee Database, which we know is missing some elevation heights and stuff like that. That's what they're using to say this is what your protection levels are. So we're still fighting that, and the reason we're fighting it is just like you and I were talking about. You have people who may be in X zones or maybe in a flood zone B or C, which are technically not flood zones. They're special areas on the map that they could be, and those people are being mapped into A or AE zones, right? So what happens is if I go from a B or a C or an X to an A or an AE zone, then all of a sudden I have to buy flood insurance, right? Because my mortgage is going to now require it. Well, you don't get that grandfathered rate. You don't get the 18% a year that we're seeing because of risk rating 2.0. You get whatever that new actuarial premium cost is, right? So if it's $5,000, $7,000, $8,000, there it is, go buy it. Right. So that's the reason why we're really fighting the maps, is because there's areas we know are wrong and should not be special flood hazard areas, and it's going to map people in and force them to buy flood insurance at these unaffordable rates. So it's kind of, we're going down parallel paths, hoping to kill both things with one stone. Right. But we're going to have to. It's something that we're going to continue to fight. I don't know what that time frame looks like for us on our maps. I think we probably get into maybe next summer, and then they're going to present us with a new set of maps. And I think at that point we're going to be in the same boat that Terrebonne in. They're going to say, "This is it. Shut up. Eat your cake." Or get kicked out the flood insurance program. Right. But we'll see what happens.
Appreciate it. It's very complicated.
It is.
And again, there's so many different insurances, but it's really a lot of money and a big part of our community. So
no doubt.
Let me take another break. We have one more to go with Archie Chaisson right here on Bayou Time.
Today's social media segment is brought to you by South Louisiana Bank. It's better when we bank together. Waits and Downer, attorneys at law. Terrebonne Ford, built Ford tough.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to Bayou Time, third segment with Archie Chaisson, the parish president of Lafourche Parish, and seasons. We always talk about football, and this year we had basketball because the LSU women won, so everybody's that. And then baseball season was cool. So before we talk about hurricane season, which is the other season we're always worrying about, it is good to have a football season this year where Nichols is kind of set and they're ready to go. Your high schools are all kind of playing on good fields now, and that's going to be a lot better for the parish too, right?
Yeah, no doubt. Looking forward to that home opener at Nichols on a Thursday night, which is going to be a little weird, but I don't know how JT got Rebo to play on a Thursday night, but I'm glad we're kicking it off at home. I read an article today. I'm a Trojan alum, right? So we still follow Central Lafourche ball and things that Pop Vadros and those guys are doing with the team over at Central. Look for a rebuilding year after he took over that team last year. So it's going to be fun to watch all of that kick back off.
Right, but in a better spot than we have been for 3 years.
Yeah, no doubt. Not worried about COVID, not worried about hurricane rebuilds, because you got to think, the 2020 season at the end, get hit by Zeta in October, and then of course you had Ida in the summer of 21, which completely screwed up that start of school that first year. So it's going to be hopefully
South Lafourche
going into hurricane season. It's going to be quiet. It's going to be non-issues, and we can have everything like we're supposed to.
Yeah. So let's talk about the other season, the hurricane season. So you guys, it's not your first rodeo, obviously. y'all ready? You got all your pumps working. Everything's good to go. Y'all did all your rehearsals that you need to do. I love El Nino. Everybody's kind of crying about the weather. I'm like, I'll take this weather all day long.
Right.
Don't send me a hurricane like I do.
Look, I will take a month and a half of 100-degree temperature if we get Saharan dust and these highs that keep all that stuff pushed off. But look, the next couple of weeks are going to be crucial. It's always when it heats up. I always joke with my dad. My dad's birthday is the 30th. And we always seem to have something right in there. And I was like,
29th to 30th.
You need to quit having birthdays or we need to move something. But it's going to heat up over the next couple of weeks. If you've watched some of the Facebook meteorologists, there's some models that show some things happening over the next couple of weeks with some lows in the Gulf and then some waves coming off of Africa. But now's really time to think about, in a post-Ida world, what are you going to do for a hurricane, right? Especially if you're in a FEMA unit or you're still in a state camper for some reason, we're going to tell you to evacuate.
Right,
we're going to make you leave those things because we don't want you in there.
Those hatches,
and for a tropical storm, much less anything above a category 1 or 2. But where are you going to go? What are those evacuation shelters going to look like? If your house is still damaged from Ida, I don't think we don't have a whole lot of blue roofs left, but for some reason, if you do, for some odd reason, what does that look like? What are you going to come home to if your house is still messed up? So you gotta plan through all that stuff. If you're going to stay with family and friends, if you're going to count on us for sheltering, make sure you have your medicine and your water and your food and all that stuff for a couple of days, like we saw for Ida, until we can get things figured out, get buildings set up so we can do longer term shelters. But then, from a parish perspective, our big thing right now is, we still have buildings that are damaged. We're in the same boat as some of the homeowners, right? With temporary roofs on buildings. A lot of our buildings are being re-roofed right now. I spent all morning in my office in Matthews, hearing the blowtorch above my head as they melted the asphalt layer on the new roof, hoping nobody was going to fall through.
You'd love to be doing that job.
Right? 100 degrees with a rosebud at the end of a torch, right? That's those guys, I gotta give it. But look, most of the time they started about 4:30 in the morning. We put a light plant up on the roof for them, and then by about 1 o'clock, they're out of there.
Take your hat off to those guys.
No doubt, they're working their tails off to get us fixed up. But all of our pump stations are pretty well situated in the places where we have bigger issues with pump stations that we're working with FEMA to get fixed. We brought in some temporary pumping capacity to make sure we can take care of folks in those situations. Our levee districts are doing a ton of work. All the issues we saw in North Lafourche. With some water that came over the levees, the North Lafourche Levee District has already issued contracts and had contracts already issued when Ida hit to raise some of those spots. And then we look forward to kind of those post-hurricane dollars that are coming in and bigger projects that we could build, lengthening seawalls around North America and redoing the bulkhead there, rebuilding our pump stations, putting in bigger, beefier stations that we're not going to have old timber piles and old dog houses on the top that blow off, doing bigger steel structures. I'm trying to catch up with President Dove and things that he's done. But we've seen the things that he's done here in Terrebonne over the last 8 years and taken some of those models into account. Looking at different hydraulic standards so we can pump water more efficiently with less pumping power, right? To save on those fuel costs and those electric costs at the end of the day. So it's all those things, and I give a lot of credit to Dylan and Dylan Baroni, our public works director, because he came from that background in a surveying world, had worked on a lot of our pump stations and laid them out. And our mechanic group, when we think about what does it look like after the fact, we have to start tearing this stuff apart to fix it. So we've made some of those changes on our pump stations, and it's worked on the couple we've done so far. And we've actually showed those pump stations to FEMA and said, look, we built these before Ida. or finished them before Ida, and they didn't move, didn't rock, didn't rack, had zero issues with them. So we're not asking you to just come bail us out at the end of the day, right? We're putting our own money where our mouth is with our tax dollars here locally.
That's what we've been doing for 20 years.
So let us. We know what we need to
50
build.
years.
We know what we want to build. Yeah, did the old pump station get built in the '60s and it was timber piles and wooden decks and yeah, we probably didn't spray enough Thompson water seal on it to keep it from buckling. Probably, right? But if we're going to not have to worry about this and you don't want to have to pay for this pump station every time we get hit, then let us build something beefier now and save that for the long run. So those are the things we're focusing on. But people getting a game plan, watching the weather, paying attention to those sources, and not so much the Facebook meteorologists, but those of us who are talking to the National Weather Service, and those guys. I take a second. Ben over in Southwest Louisiana was a meteorologist out there. We lost during the week. So prayers go out to his family as well, and as they mourn his loss. But he's a great meteorologist, and I still remember hearing his voice on some of these conference calls when we merged Southwest and New Orleans together. But hopefully it's a quiet season. Hopefully we get through it without any issues and we move on.
Yeah, that's the one thing. Look, with this drought, we've been, dusk till dawn, dawn to dusk, being able to work and do so many things that usually have to take some days off because of. So yeah, they've been able to do a lot of work this year and make a lot of without stopping for storm,
a lot of rain days
to get a lot of things together. So
hopefully it stays that way.
Yeah, no doubt. We don't need to. We don't need any more of those. We need a break for a little while.
No doubt. A couple of years.
Well, man, I appreciate it, and congratulations on the election. I guess it's the election, but 4 more years, man. Well, thanks for coming by.
Thanks,
appreciate
Harry.
it. We'll be back with more Bayou Time right after this.